So section 1.5, we'll learn about adding real numbers. So we'll learn how to add real numbers and how to solve applications or word problems that involve real numbers, and then how to find the opposite of a number, which will come in handy later. So, all right, the rules for adding real numbers, actually adding and subtracting, when you're looking at two numbers, if the numbers have the same sign, in other words, they're both positive or they're both negative, you add the absolute values, you add the numbers, and you keep the sign. Same sign, add and keep the sign. Two positives you add, and the answer is positive. Two negatives you add, and the answer is negative. If they are opposite signs, you subtract the larger number minus the smaller number. If they're opposite signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Keep the sign of the greater. I've memorized these two phrases when I was younger, and I say them to myself all the time. Opposite sign, subtract, and keep the sign of the greater. All right, so here's a -5 and a -9. Same signs. So you add. 5 plus 9 is 14. And keep the sign of the So over here, let me write 5 and 9 I added. Same sign you add and keep the sign. All right, here we have a -5 and a +3. This is a negative and this is a positive. These are opposite signs. Opposite signs you subtract. The 5 is bigger than the 3, so we're going to subtract the 3 from the 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. And what number is bigger? Whatever number is on top, the bigger number. The negative number is bigger. So when you have opposite signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the greater. Here we have a +14 and a -10, opposite signs. Opposite signs you subtract. 14 minus 10 is 4. And which number was bigger, the positive number or the negative number? The positive number was bigger. So we're going to keep the sign of the greater. So if you write this phrase down, it's also in your book, but this is kind of in a concise way. Same signs, add and keep the sign. If the two numbers have opposite signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the greater. So now you're going to do practice 3, practice 4, and practice 5. Yourself, I'll just point out here, practice 3. You can tell practice 3 because there's the little green box. So turn off the video and do practice 3, 4, and 5. Okay, moving on. Now, if we're going to add fractions, you can only add fractions if they have the same denominator, and luckily these do. So here I have 6/11, and here I have 3/11. They have the same denominator, so I can add them. They are the same sign. They're both negative. So same sign you add. On the side over here, 6/11 plus 3/11 is 9/11. Same sign you add and keep the negative sign. Same sign, add and keep the sign. Here we have a -12 and a +4. This negative goes with the 12 and that positive goes with the 4. Opposite signs you subtract. So 12 minus 4 is 8. Opposite signs subtract and keep the sign of the greater. The negative number is bigger than the positive number, so your answer is going to be negative. All right, here's a positive 12.8 and here's a negative 3.6. Opposite signs, you subtract. What is 12.8 minus 3.6? And you're not allowed to use a calculator yet till chapter 2, so 8 minus 6 is 2. Line up those decimals real nice. 2 minus 3 can't be done, so we'll rename or carry or regroup. Your teacher may have used different words. But 12.8 minus 3.6 is 9.2, and since the positive number is bigger than the negative number, you're going to keep the sign of the greater. Keep that positive sign. All right, so now you're going to stop the video and do practice 6. All right, looking at classroom example 3, here we're going to practice our order of operations, and a reminder of order of operations over here is you do what's in your parens first, then your exponents, then division and multiplication from left to right, and then addition and subtraction from left to right. All right, so I'm going to perform this operation. This is in parens, the square brackets, or grouping operation. A positive 3 and a negative 13. Opposite signs you subtract. And keep the sign of the greater. The 13 is bigger than the 3. So that's negative 10. Plus, all right, I want to do this absolute value first. Negative 4, bring down the negative, bring down the 4, bring down the plus. And what is the absolute value of negative 7? The absolute value of negative 7 is positive 7. Bring down the negative 10. Bring down the plus. All right, negative 4 and positive 7, opposite signs. Opposite signs you subtract and keep the sign of the greater. So negative 4 plus 7 is going to be a positive 3. And now I have this negative goes with the 10 and this positive goes with the 3. Opposite signs you subtract. And you keep the sign of the greater. All right, so now you're going to do practice 7.